Hello, and welcome to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview series. And I am so excited today to welcome my guest and friend, Marci French. And we're going to talk about leadership, leading change, and building resilient teams as well as personal resiliency. Before we jump into our questions, I want to tell you about this incredible human. So Marci French is a facilitator and keynote speaker. She is the National Apartment Association Education Institute Senior Faculty, and she's also a VP of Asset Management. She's an experienced vice president with a demonstrated success in the property management industry. She has strong professional skills in operations, training, HR, acquisitions, and dispositions, system implementations, negotiations, and asset management. She's a mentor, a coach, and educator in the areas of leadership, my favorite, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is currently serving as the vice president of the National Apartment Association Education Institute. Marci, welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks, Stephanie, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to have you here. So before we jump into the questions, I read your bio, but is there anything about you that people should know that you want to tell our listeners today?
I think it's amazing to listen to all that and go, do I do those things? Because it seems like a blur on some days. And I'm sure for anybody who's a leader, you know that it feels like a blur. So, the only thing I want full transparency today as I sit in my role, I do not have as a leader, my leadership has taken on a different format because I no longer have direct reports. I don't have a team. The role that I have still allows me to lead, but I don't actually have people who report to me. So it creates kind of some freedom in that. I don't have to worry so much about, did somebody call out sick today, or does somebody need to take PTO next week? So it kind of frees me up to be a different type of leader. And I think that's, important as we continue this conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you shared that because, my evolution in my career, I'm in a similar spot, right? So I lead people and I teach people how to be better leaders, but I don't have direct reports right now unless you count, virtual assistant. So, but that's not really a direct report. It's someone I hire part-time, right? So there is freedom in that, but I also think that's a great point that I want our listeners to hear, because leadership is not about position. It's not about title. It's not even whether or not you do have direct reports, although if you do, you have a huge responsibility there. But leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I think with what you do in your responsibilities as, senior faculty and facilitating our advanced facilitator training for the Education Institute, as well as your role as the Education Institute Vice President, you have a broad sphere of influence, and it is a great skill to get people to follow you when they're not your direct report, because then it becomes a choice. Do I want to follow this person or not? And the last thing that I'll mention, if, I'm part of the Maxwell leadership team, and one of John Maxwell's books is called The 5 Levels of Leadership. And the lowest level of leadership is positional leadership, which is where people follow you because they have to, because of a title or position. And the higher you get in those positions of leadership, it's all about influence. And so I think you are a great influential leader, and so I'm glad you brought that up as our listeners kind of hear this conversation. It doesn't matter what your title is or what your position is. That doesn't necessarily define you as a leader. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So let's jump in. So my first set of questions is around transformational leadership. And your leadership has inspired teams to push beyond their perceived limits. What personal philosophy or experience has shaped your ability to lead in this way?
So change can be big. I think people get intimidated by the idea of change and the idea of new things coming their way, and it seems intimidating. For me, it's kind of cliche, the whole how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. I think sometimes we look at our limits, we look at what's coming our way, we look at it as too much. And I think what's helped me over the years, and something I always come back to when I'm talking about that with folks, is take one small piece, do one thing at a time, measure it, achieve it, do a good job at it, and then do the next thing. Because when you take it all in at once, it just becomes overwhelming. So my philosophy is always break it down. Don't do so much all at once. Do one thing at a time, celebrate the win, and then keep going.
I love that so much. And I think that's such a great message for our listeners. When I was facilitating a leadership workshop last week, we were talking about people who struggle with perfectionism and also multitasking. And people think, and I am a recovering perfectionist, okay? So I have suffered from that more so in the past than I do today. And I also used to consider myself to be a great multitasker. And we do have to multitask to some degree and juggle things and rearrange them, etc. But when you're working on tasks that require your undivided attention, and then you get distracted and you're trying to multitask, you're actually less efficient. And it takes people at least 20 minutes to get back to concentrating on the task at hand. So if you think about how many interruptions or squirrel, emails, notifications, whatever it is that's pulling you away from a task, you're actually less efficient, not more efficient, even though you feel super busy, right?
So Stephanie, I agree with you. And I actually, the last team I did have that did direct report to me, I did a training. We did a kind of just an informal meeting on multitasking, and that it's a myth, that it's really switch tasking. You're not really multitasking. And as somebody who has really embraced this idea, because I've recently found that I have ADHD, which the squirrel thing is real in a real way. Yeah. I've really tried to retrain my mind, because that was always my claim to fame when I was coming up through my careers. I'm so great at multitasking. No one's great at multitasking, because you can't do it. You're switch tasking. You're doing something and switching back and forth. And if you really spend the time to focus on the one thing, finish the thing, and then go do the next thing, it actually helps us get things done that one section at a time, that one bite at a time.
And it reduces that overwhelm, because then you can also check things off your list. Okay, I actually completed this, and now I'm going to complete this, and now I'm going to complete this, instead of having 10 unfinished things that are all weighing on your mind, right?
Yes.
I love that so much. Okay, so here's my next question. As a leader, how do you balance creating, wrong set. We'll go back. Okay. I want to talk about emotional intelligence for a moment. And I love that we have been talking about the importance of emotional intelligence more in business over the last 10 years or so, because that didn't used to be the case. So I think as a whole, as leaders, we are more aware of the importance of that. So when you think about emotional intelligence, how has it played a role in your success as a leader? And what advice would you give to aspiring leaders looking to strengthen this skill?
Well, this question is timely. I just did a 2-hour session yesterday for a leadership Lyceum group on emotional intelligence. So the timing is perfect. So I will say that this was absolutely my work as a leader. And it's why I'm passionate about it now, because I think I continue to work on it, and it makes it to where when I talk about it with others, I'm really talking to myself while I talk to them, right? As leaders, we never arrive. We always are doing work on ourselves. And I think emotional intelligence is something that I had to focus on for myself as a leader. I needed to make sure that I was reading the room, if you will, and paying attention to what other folks needed, how I communicated with them, how I showed up for them. And if I just did it based on my own strengths as a leader, I missed out on the opportunity to show up for people the way they wanted. So I've spent time reading about it, paying attention to feedback from other folks, specifically, people's leadership or how they receive appreciation, their style. I know Gary Chapman does the book on the 5 love languages, and then later wrote a book, The 5 Appreciation Languages. And I actually had already used the 5 love languages to start using for my teams and changed it to the business. So when I saw that he had actually written a book, I was like, this is great. But I think really paying attention to what people need, how they like to be communicated. I'm very boisterous, loud. I talk fast. I think everybody's excited, and it's not the way people receive. So paying attention to that, what's important to the people on my team, has been a hard learned lesson that now I'm passionate about sharing with other leaders, and making sure that, in the world of technology, we're paying attention to the human element. We are humans. We bring our human to work, is what I always say. So if we're treating people like robots, we're not going to get much out of them.
I love that so much. We're bringing our human to work. And I love this topic because, the old mentality in business used to be, keep work and, personal separate, but you're not two separate human beings. You're one multifaceted human being. Now, are there certain things that we might want to, not completely reveal in the workplace, or at least, if we need to talk to someone about it and then kind of move on? Yes. But I think as leaders, the more that we can understand not only people's communication styles and preferences, whether they're introverted, extroverted, et cetera, but also what's going on in their life, then we're better equipped to serve them and support them as a leader. And we also are showing compassion. And the more we can show compassion for someone as a whole human being, the more loyalty that we're going to create and trust that we're going to create. When I think about, I've been fortunate to have a lot of really great leaders in my career, some not so great, but some really great ones. And if I think about the ones who made the biggest impact in my life, they had a balance of being tough and pushing me beyond my perceived limits and comfort zone, but they also had great compassion for me and cared about me as a human being. Mm-hmm. And that's huge. I love that so much. Hello, Kim Hurd. Kim says, emotional intelligence is such an important topic for leadership. Great question. Awesome. So glad to have you here with us, Kim. And you will be on my podcast. I've been trying to hunt you down, so we need to schedule that.
You heard it here first, folks.
Okay, so my next question is about diversity. And as someone who is passionate about diversity and has led diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the DEI committee at NAA, I want to talk about this because it's a really important topic. So organizations thrive when they embrace diverse perspectives. We both agree with that wholeheartedly. How have you seen inclusivity contribute to successful transformations and specifically inclusive leadership?
You know what? Since Kim Hurd is here and we just called her out, let's call out Kim Hurd. So where I saw it? I saw it in the board of NAAEI. I see it in the task force that she put together. We did a growth task force for EI, and I see it in everything that she has done. So I participated, but I want to highlight it because she's been intentional. So I know you asked this question of me, and so now I'm answering for her if you ask her.
Awesome.
But I will say that watching that play out in the last few years and how she was so specific about putting together a board that has so much different type of representation. And I want to be really clear that this is the topic that is kind of a hot one right now. Diversity does not just mean what I look like. It's not just about my skin color. It's not just about the fact that I'm a woman. There's so much more that comes into that. I am from a small town. How I come up with solutions, being from a graduating high school class of 44, is much different than somebody like my daughter who graduated with about 1,000 people. How you show up is different, right? So diversity means so many different things, but I so much appreciate sitting on the board the last 2 years, sitting on these committees, knowing that there was thought in the types of companies we represented, whether it was supplier or an owner operator, whether it was a big company or a little company. That really made us successful. We had a large plan of work the last 2 years, and that was 23 and 24. And we accomplished so much because we had so many different viewpoints in those spaces. And participating in that, I'm so proud to be a part of that and so proud to have sat under her leadership. And it is something that, I strive to do as well. But I think the more we focus on diversity in broader spectrums than what's just obvious and low-hanging fruit, but in different ways, we continue to be successful. The numbers are there. It proves out that the more diverse your groups, the more diverse your stakeholders, your leadership, all of those things, the more successful our organizations are. And I'm obviously passionate about that idea, but participating in it and seeing the proof has been really fabulous.
Yeah, and it is so important because, I want to talk about hiring for a moment. So it also goes into hiring. When we hire people that are like us, regardless of how they're like us, do they look like us? Do they have similar backgrounds? Do they think like us? We're not going to have a well-balanced and well-rounded team. I don't need a bunch of Stephanies. Like, actually, if I had to lead a bunch of me, it would drive me nuts, right? I need a bunch of people who are different and who are better in some areas or have a completely different perspective, because that's how I really get all of the thought leadership, all of the ideas. That's how I stretch my own thinking and mindset. And that's how we find better solutions and we get better results. We're not going to get great results if I'm living in a vacuum, right? So I love this topic so much. And maybe, that's one that we could have like a follow-up where we're just talking about the importance of it. And maybe you and Kim want to join me to do that. That would be great.
We learn a lot from each other when we surround ourselves with people that are different than us, right? I agree with you. I don't want to be around a bunch of me because I'm exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm tired of myself at the end of the day. So we serve our residents and we serve our customers when there is more than just one personality type, because not everybody responds to all of this.
Exactly. 100%. Okay. So next I want to talk about leading change. Which is a topic that's hugely important to me. Change, we know, is inevitable, right? It's going to happen. There is an emotional cycle to change, though, and it's predictable. So you've led several teams through change, both, in your volunteer leadership positions at EI, within your organization. What are some key lessons that you've learned about overcoming the resistance that's going to happen naturally? People are going to resist. And how have you overcome that resistance and ensured smoother transitions?
I think the biggest thing is listening. Listening to actually hear folks. Sometimes people will do the change. They just gotta go through the process of being a little bit uncomfy, processing the discomfort, and then they get on board. And I think sometimes it can be so argumentative in the change, like people, they have so much tension there. So sometimes people just need to get it off their chest. Like, listen, I've always done it this way. It's worked for me, and this is hard. And instead of us leaders responding, well, that's too bad, that's what we're doing, either get on board or get out, that doesn't achieve buy-in. And sometimes people aren't saying they're not on board, they're just saying it's uncomfortable. Listening and letting them be uncomfortable, letting them share their feedback along the process and the evolution, because sometimes we have change in mind and we just know that the end result is better. But sometimes as organizations and as leaders, we don't always remember the pieces along the way, and we might miss something and it might make it difficult. So when we listen to the feedback of the people who are executing the change or participating in the change, we get the opportunity to pivot, if you will, it's such a popular word, to shift gears and maybe do it even better as we go. So I think listening is so important.
So important. And, so much of this we can actually apply to ourselves if we put ourselves in the other people's shoes, right? And kind of try to identify with where they're coming from. Most of us don't love change unless it's change that we personally had a hand in or get to lead, right? So if it's my idea, something that needs to change, I'm going to be much more excited about it versus a change that others are implementing that maybe I didn't get to weigh in yet. I'm just learning about it, yet it's going to impact me. So to your point, if someone tells me, well, just suck it up and, deal with it. Well, first of all, it's not going to work. Would that work for you? Someone told you that? No. Secondly, then those people with their concerns, the discomfort or the resistance, they're still going to have the discomfort and resistance. And then it's likely going to fester and get worse. Whereas we can hear them out. Not only does that automatically emotionally feel better because someone's listening to my concerns, but as leaders, and you mentioned this, we may learn something that we didn't consider that we should consider as part of this strategy or initiative that would really help us make better decisions. And Patrick Lencioni, I leverage his 5 Dysfunctions of a Team book and do some workshops on that. But one of the things that he says about that I love, it's a simple statement, and it's so easy to remember. When people don't weigh in, they don't buy in. Period. End of story. When people don't weigh in, they don't buy in. So I love that, Marci. All right. My next question is, as a leader, how do you balance creating stability that people want and need, stability for your team, while also embracing disruption as an opportunity for growth?
Well, I struggle with this because the disruption is something that I always embrace the disruption. But then sometimes you get off track, right? So then you don't have the stability because we got to move forward. And this is something I've learned watching the leadership of EI, especially Kim has been great about always bringing us back when I was sitting under her as a president, and then Pam Weber as well. She keeps us on track because I tend to go down a path. But disruption, I think, is important because it allows for ideas that are new that, again, we didn't think of. But keeping on point and on structure and having a plan. You always got to go back to what is it? There's a strategic plan. There's a mission statement. There's a goal. Whatever that is, we got to always bring ourselves back there. Are we moving towards that? We can have disruption, and sometimes we're moving towards that, and we realize that the goal is now something different. We got to know when we should shift that, but also stay focused on the end game. So I like a little bit too much disruption, Stephanie, if I'm honest. So I try to make sure that that's how I come back to the plan, come back to where we're going, get back on the map, because we got to get there somehow. So,
have you done your Clifton Strengths, by the way?
I do not know what Clifton Strengths is, but I've done. Is this like a predictive index or an enneagram?
What your top 34 strengths are. So it's through Gallup. There's a book called Now Discover Your Strengths, but I'm curious to know what yours are. We'll talk later, but I bet one of your strengths is maximizer, since you like a lot of disruption, but we'll dig in and find out. I'm very curious.
I've taken lots of tests and they're always true. So I'm probably pretty typical, I would say. Whatever my personality is, they tie out in every single thing I do.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll dig in. All right, so my next question is about pressure that comes with leadership. So how do you personally maintain your own resilience and balance, if you will, as a leader?
You're asking all the questions that I've been training on lately, like literally in 30 days. So I believe balance is also a myth, just like multitasking. I don't think there is a such thing. I don't think anything ever looks like this. I think it looks like this, and it looks like this, and it looks like this, but it never, ever, ever looks like this. I have 2 children. I've been a single mom for most of their lives. Some days I'm a really, really great mom, and some days I'm a really great leader. Some days I'm a really great employee. Some days I'm a good friend. Some days I'm a good partner. And I promise you, never on any one day am I good at all of those things? So I don't actually try to achieve balance. And I actually, as a leader, try to tell other people to let themselves off the hook and stop pressuring yourself to get to some magical balance that doesn't exist. I take every single day and I say, today I'm going to do the best I can at the tasks or the things that I'm got on my schedule or don't have on my schedule. Sometimes parenting, my children are adults now, but sometimes parenting took a schedule. So if you need me to be at your play or your PTA meeting, I need you to send me a calendar invite so I make sure I prioritize that on that day. That's just me. Everybody.
No, my saying is if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening in my life. It's just
not happening. Yeah. I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
So the pressure is there. Right. My friend Ishia Shepherd always said, just the other day, she said, Marci, I girl boss too close to the sun this week. And so I'm quoting her. I crack up. But that's her way of saying I said yes to too many things. I thought I could do too many things. And now I'm paying the price because I can't do all these things. So you just got to decide, okay, great. I can't do all the things. What thing could I let myself off the hook? I'm not going to do it this week or this day. I'm not going to be great at it. I'm going to reschedule it for later, and I'm going to have to apologize and keep it moving. And the closer, I'm turning 50 this summer, and I can tell you that
early birthday.
The more I'm like, the more I embrace that I can't do all the things for all the people and all the days, the less pressure I feel because I just know I'm doing the best I can.
Yes.
I just can't do it all. And none of us can. And I think we should stop trying to act like we can.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think that balance, like you said, and I put this up here, achieving balance every day is a myth. I could not agree with you more. And when I was a younger working mom and traveling with 3 small kids at home, I did put a lot of pressure on myself to be the June Cleaver and the perfect wife and grow my career. And it was exhausting, right? But that was the perfectionist part of me. Now I'm the recovering, older, wiser recovering perfectionist. But exactly as you mentioned, some days it may be my son that needs the majority of my attention, and that's okay. Other days, I'm burning the midnight oil until beyond midnight because I'm working on a project, which I actually do enjoy sometimes working really late or into the wee hours of the morning because I'm more creative, which actually studies show that when we're a little bit tired, we actually tap into the creative side of our brain. It's also because no one else in the world is bothering me. The world goes dark. And I've just got myself and my creativity, and I do that. But I do it by choice, sometimes because I'm under pressure to get some things done, but I do it by choice. It's no longer, I'm going to kill myself and burn the midnight oil. And I was talking to Marcus Wilson yesterday, and, he was very vulnerable and honest and said, I actually did, experience burnout at one point in my life. And it taught him so much about knowing when to really call yourself on it and say, hey, buddy, it's time to step back and take a break. One of my friends has this saying, you have to check out to be able to check back in. And I think that's so true. And knowing when you need self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Is it reading a book? Is it binging a Netflix series? Is it going for a walk? Is it going to the gym? Is it getting a massage? Whatever it is for you that brings you back to center, you have to create time for that. And again, because I also love my calendars, it goes on my calendar.
Yeah.
One more thing I'll mention about that I encourage people to do, that I also strive to do for myself. I'm not always perfect at it, but perfection is a myth. Is I do time blocking. So I time block not only projects that I need to work on that require my, dedicated focus without interruption, but also that time for myself, whatever that looks like. But if you do that, and this is my recommendation to any listeners, either live or who catch the replay, don't give your time away, because I see a lot of leaders doing that. Well, I time blocked. I'm like, well, then what happened? well, this person needed this and this person needed that and this person needed this. And I was like, so your time block didn't go to you. It went to 5 other people, basically. And that happens when we tend to be people of service or people pleasers, right? But, you know, holding true to you and knowing that you can't pour from an empty cup. So
Right.
if you're constantly giving that time away, then you are going to experience burnout. So.
Well, and that's where it comes out of. I got there too. I took a picture. Well, I didn't. My daughter took a picture of it, and I share it with people that the day it hit, it was long days. I was trying to do all the things, and you physically can't keep up. And if you don't figure out how to step away, you absolutely are going to hit the wall. So,
yeah. And that's what Marcus shared as well. He's like, well, I learned the hard way. So now I have all of this wonderful advice to share with people, which is great because when we do go through life trials and tribulations and challenges, when we turn our trials into our triumph or our mess into our message, or our test into our testimony, you are the best possible person to help the former version of you, someone that may be going through that right now. And something you say, you know, someone may listen to you today, Marci, and hear one thing that is the exact right thing that they need to hear because they're experiencing that. So I think it's great when we share what we've gone through because it helps others for sure. All right. So my next question, I want to talk about underrepresentation. So we talked earlier about the importance of diversity. But underrepresented business professionals and women leaders often face additional expectations or pressures in leadership roles. How have you built resilience in the face of these challenges?
Well, the role I'm in is definitely one that taught me a little bit more about that because I think most of my career I came up thinking of myself and the underrepresentation was about being of color because the spaces I was in my career for the first 15, 20 years, I was often one of the only, if not the only person of color. But when I hit this role, it stopped being about that, although it's still something, it was more about being female. Asset management, I've been to one NMHC conference. And when I tell you, I was like, oh, now it's about being a female more than anything in this role. And I've noticed it, my boss, who was my asset manager earlier on in my career, he's kind of a no nonsense. He just sees things as they are. He doesn't really pay attention to those things so much. So he's like, if you do the job and you're qualified, like that's just how he thinks. And I had to come to him at some point. We had done a walk with a GC at one of our properties. And the GC just was honed in on him. And I was like, this is the last time you're going to see my boss. Like, it's me from here on out. So at some point, I had to like figure out how to get the buy-in that as a female in this role, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about, right? It's a male dominated role. And I've even watched it as, the owner rep. There's a community manager at one of my communities who's male. And a resident came in, and I don't tell people who I am. I just often will say I'm the trainer or the IT person helping out at the community because I don't want folks to disregard the folks that are leading the property. Well, no problem here because this guy wouldn't even look me in the eye. I was trying to help him out. He would only deal with the community manager. And when he left, I said, that's about the fact that you're a man. I go, it is what it is. Like, I'm seeing it play out. And he was like, that's so interesting. I never thought of it that way. So I think there's still some work. I think there's some stereotypical ideals that we have about who sits in what seat. And if you look at things like the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, you saw a shift in women coming into the C-suite, and then you've seen a shift back down in the last year or so. And at the end of the day, I mean, however anybody wants to think about it, I think women coming into those type of male-dominated spaces, it shakes things up.
Yeah.
I've had to be resilient because I don't have any choice. It's all I've known in my career because it's the only way I would grow. Right. If I didn't just push through, thank goodness I had the most amazing mentors and leaders myself, just like you mentioned earlier, who just said to me, I had a strong woman mentor, Pat Hutchison. She is president of.
If you hear this later, we love you. You're amazing.
she is so amazing, because not only did she say, Marci, you got here because you did the work, but also she never let me just sit down. She never let me give an excuse. There's no, it doesn't matter where you came from, what education you have. I don't care. You can do it. And she pushed me. And so between the experience that I've had and somebody always in my corner promising me it's available to me, I don't know any different. So I feel like the big thing is to turn around and give that to other people. So I try to be that for my own children, for the people that I mentor, that you do the work and you have achieved all the things you've achieved because you did the work, and know that you can keep doing the work and achieve anything you want as a result.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's a mindset thing, right? Because we are going to come across people who, for whatever reason, their own biases, their own, closed mindset. We'll just put it that way. I'm like, let me choose my words carefully. Their own biases, their own closed mindset. We're going to come across that. And, we have two choices, right? We can let that really get under our skin, and we can let that shake our confidence, and we can let that make us question ourselves, or we can say, the way that person feels is their choice. I will do my best to improve communication with them, to try to get through, right? To try to work with them, because I know I can do it. But if at the end of the day, I'm still hitting a brick wall, well, that's really that person's issue. And it truly is. And I can let it be my issue, or I can say, no, I'm going to keep going because I know I have value. I know that what I'm here to accomplish, I can do. People are counting on me, and I'm going to give my best, right? But it really is a mindset thing. And it doesn't mean that, for those of you who are listening to this either now or later that have experienced that, I'm not minimizing it at all. It's terrible, but it happens. And you might get emotional about it because we are emotional beings that are sometimes logical. So you might be feeling the feelings, and you need to feel those and process them and reconcile them. But then at the end of it, you really have two choices. I can be bitter. I can be better. And that's it. Bitter or better, right?
And I also try to take again, I'm not making excuses sometimes, right? But sometimes they have different experiences. Like I think about as an asset manager, if somebody I'm working with has never dealt with a female asset manager, it's something new to them. So I try to also give a little bit of grace and space for the fact that they have their own experiences. And when I walk in a room, they're like, oh, that's not what I expected. Well, let me tell you why it's okay that I'm here. Like I've got it. Let me just let me prove to you I'm the right person for this seat. It's okay.
I love that. Okay, I'm typing this in. Typing, talking, looking. There's a comment I'm going to add. All right, let's see. Who is that? Okay, Kimberly. Great conversation, better or better. I live by that, though, better or better. And sometimes it's self-talk. I'm like, remember what you always say and what you believe. Okay, now it's time for you to practice what you preach. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about residential property management careers for a moment. So when I've had my podcast for a while, but when I first started bringing this series back, it was in advance of RPM Careers Week, Residential Property Management Careers for the multifamily industry. And so for any of our listeners, either today or catching the replay, who maybe they're emerging leaders, Marci, in this space, or maybe they're from outside of multifamily, what would you tell existing or future leaders wanting to grow their careers, particularly women and people from diverse backgrounds? What key advice would you offer them to become more successful in this space?
You just got to want it. You just got to want it. You just got to do it. So it's easy for me because I think about my own career path. No, nobody chose property management. And if you're Gen X, I don't, unless you had somebody in your family, like I don't know anybody who said, yeah, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just think about what what I've experienced in my own career path, but also my own daughter. My daughter joined the multifamily industry, I guess about 2 years and some change ago. And when I tell you, she had no interest at all. She watched me, she sat under my desk, sat in my clubhouses. She's been in this space her whole life, right? She didn't know anything different for me either. But I told her the opportunities are endless. They're endless. Like, can start off in leasing one day and you can end up in a marketing position. You could end up in a community manager position, a regional. You could do the typical path. I went a very typical boring road, like the next step, the next step, the next step. But nowadays there are so many other opportunities in training, in marketing, in leasing, in working with the supplier side, the service maintenance side. The sky is the limit, and every different organization has a different way that they title it, the way the path goes. I mean, I've literally touched every single part of the industry because I've worked for small companies as well as big companies. So getting to be part of HR or getting to help with some of the CapEx projects on the maintenance side is because I've worked for so many different types of companies. So I went to DECA and delivered a couple of scholarships on behalf of the EI last month.
I saw that. That's awesome. And you got to spend some time with our friend Sarah. That's so great.
Yes, yes, it was cool to see Sarah. But they were so interested. And then, you know, so many folks don't really understand what our industry is. All they see is on the news, landlords and high rents, right? That's all they know. But it's so much more than that. So I'm the biggest cheerleader for our industry because I came through, you know, without anything. Like, literally, what am I to do? I'm 19 years old and I dropped out of college, and now what? Took every bit of education, every bit of mentorship, every opportunity I wanted and didn't want. Like, I just did it all. And I just think this industry is cool that way. It's unique that way. And if there's something you want to do, it's available here.
I love that so much. And I, you know, had a similar path, right, where I fell into it, which many people from kind of our generation did. And so I was going to college and looking for an apartment, and I walked out with an apartment and a job, and I was like, oh, this will be fun while I'm in college. And I got 47 leases my first month in the business. And so I was kind of a natural. And then here I am, you know, 30 years later. And it's been an incredible career. But I didn't know anything about multifamily or property management, and I didn't need to, because as you mentioned, there's so much education available, obviously through the Education Institute, which we're both passionate about. There are so many networking opportunities where you can find someone to mentor you. And I would say, you know, get involved. Like, if you're not sure where to start, just show up. You don't have to know. You know, you don't know what you don't know. I remember when I first got involved at the national level at NAA, sitting in a board meeting, you know, Jennifer Stachokas, she and I joined at the same time. And I'm like, do you know what they're talking about? She's like, no, do you know what they're talking about? I'm like, nope, but we're going to listen and we're going to learn. So as we wrap up, what other advice would you like to give to our listeners about leadership, building change, or, you know, building resilient teams, leading change, or getting involved in the industry? Any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, be yourself on this path. It's the biggest thing that I missed out. And I know it's cliche, and that word authentic has been repeated and thrown around quite a bit in recent years. But when I say be you, be you. We talk about this when we do AFT, and, you know, be yourself, everyone else is taken. I think it's a Dr. Seuss quote. That is so important. I come through this industry, and I remember coming through and thinking, I want to be Pat. I want to be Pat, because she was my mentor. She was the person I emulated. I wanted to be just like her. She had so much respect. She was strong, but she was soft, like all the things that you said. But at some point she said, there's already a Pat. We need a Marci. And that really, that gave me the freedom to stop trying to be someone else, but to be myself. And the more I've embraced my natural, who I am, my talents, my weaknesses, all of the things as the package deal, the more opportunities I've gotten, the more growth, the more the more I've succeeded in my career. And there's still more. I still make mistakes and there's still things I'd like to achieve at some point. But what I realize is the more or the less I stopped trying to be someone else and the more I started just being myself, the doors opened up even more. So that's always my advice to people is that, you know, we don't need another Stephanie and a Marci. We need another whoever you are because you're not here.
Correct. Well, and you know, when it comes to being you and growing into that, you know, from a young person to becoming like a full-fledged woman, you know, that's part of also, I think, growing up a little bit, going from 19 to where you are now, right? For both men and women, just coming into your own. But the more that we allow ourselves to be us and be authentic and be real, the reason more opportunities open up is because that's attractive to people. You know, we have, not to be woo-woo, but I will for a minute, we have energy fields around us. We are energetic beings. And when we're real, you can tell, right? And you can completely tell when someone's not being real, whether it's they're very, you know, timid or uncomfortable. And then hopefully you can coach them to kind of get out of their shell, or the opposite end where they're just kind of full of it. And you just want to take them to the side and say, let's have a talk. So I know you mean well, but just be you. You don't have to put on all of that, right? Just be yourself. But it is attractive when people are real. And, you know, even when it comes to leaders, when I, again, thinking back to some of the leaders that we mentioned that we've been fortunate enough to have help mentor and guide us, not only did they have compassion for me, but balance that with toughness and pushing me, but they were 100% themselves. They were real. And when you're real, when you're human with someone, that builds trust, which also, again, going back to Patrick Lencioni, trust is the foundation. And without trust, we have nothing, whether it's building a team or any type of relationship. If you don't have trust, you have nothing. And the best way to overcome distrust is exactly as you said, it's to be human. So I love that so much, Marci, and I am honored that you were here with me today. I can't wait to see you in Vegas in a couple weeks. And I think I saw something on LinkedIn and Facebook that you're like doing a jumping thing. Can you talk to us about that for a minute?
Please. I'm like, just over halfway there. So Ty Jackson and Affinity Waste is sponsoring this fundraiser. And let's just call it what it is. My friend Ty didn't want to jump off the building. So she's doing the fundraiser. And she said, can I find you to jump off this building? I said, you caught me at the right time because this is the last crazy thing I do. I've always been kind of I used to be hanging over the edge. I grew up in Colorado, hanging over the mountain and scaring my mom to death. I was always a little bit of a thrill seeker. Well, the older I get, the less, like I'm starting to get nervous about things like that. And so I said, this is it. I wanted to skydive. I don't think I'm going to skydive. So I'm going to do this instead. 820 feet off the stratosphere.
Oh my gosh.
It goes to Move for Hunger. So people who have food insecurities, it goes to a good cause. And I'm doing it as part of my celebrating my 50th birthday, doing a lot of wild, I'm trying to say yes to everything in the next few months. And then I'm going to turn 50 and I'm going to sit down somewhere because my daughter is like not amused. She's speaking with me in Vegas. So I'm such a proud moment to get to do that with her, our Boomer to Zoomer session with Alan King, Kim Hurd, and Aishia Shepherd, and my daughter, Elisha Carter. And, but yeah, I'm going to jump off a building. So if you go onto my LinkedIn, find it, and you haven't given yet, this is going to go for a good cause. And maybe I said, maybe you thought, I wish Marci would go jump off the building. Well, here you're going to get your chance.
I love it so much. Okay. So is this going to be recorded? Okay.
Yes, they give you a little thing, I think you put on the wrist. Now, whether or not be able to hold it in the position to capture it, I'm going to do my best because I feel like this is it. This is the thing I
did doing this.
I think it was 15, if I saw correctly. Okay. I just saw before I got on here.
What day is it?
Everybody's different. So we, you know, scheduling this is difficult for people who are busy. So I'm fairly certain we're not going to all do it at once. I put in the times I was available. I'm still waiting to hear back, but I will put it out there as soon as I know in case you're interested.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I want to do it. Although I have always said that I want to skydive and bungee jump. I have done rappelling when I was in the Army, but I have not skydived or bungee jumped yet. So you'll have to give me the deets. But I definitely want to see. I want to see you do it for sure in the video.
Yeah, Kim said she's going to come watch like this. And then my friend Wendy Dorchester said, she gave me a little money. She said, I'm giving you some money, but I don't want to watch. I don't want to know nothing. Just land and let me know you're alive.
That's awesome. Okay, well, Marci, it has been such a delight having you here this afternoon. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. I cannot wait to see you a couple weeks in Vegas and watch you jump off the building. And hopefully I'll catch your session with your daughter. That sounds like an awesome session, Boomer to Zoomer. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview series with my guest, Marci French. Tune in again next week as I will be interviewing Angie Pusateri. Bye for now.